I've got a full plate of videos coming up, but I had to write this one because it's something that has been nagging me for a while. I view games as equal parts mechanics and story. The beauty of good RPG design is how they combine to give you a unique experience. But it's a fine balance. If you can't adjust your mechanics to match your story, then you're restricting yourself unfairly. And if you let story water down your mechanics, you end up with boring characters. And that's why I'm recording this video. I finally got my copy of Tasha's, and after a thorough read-through, it's a solid 5 out of 10. It's got some good stuff, it's got some situational stuff, but it's so all over the place it's hard to use all of it for most people. Players aren't going to keep reading past the new character options, and the DM options are nice, but they could have been their own book if fleshed out enough. Like the Morty's Guide to Fiends and Demi-Humans of the Realms, it feels like two different books stapled together. The biggest issue I found, and the one that everyone's been talking about, is the new character rules. But I don't think many people are understanding the biggest issue with the rules, and that's the loss of the story arc. If you turn the racial ability bonus into a free-floating modifier, then you're shifting the mechanics into giving the bonus to the class instead of the race. We're going back to the glory days of the prime requisite. All melee fighters will start with +2 strength and +1 con. Ranged fighters just switch out the strength with dexterity. Wizards get a +2 intelligence no matter the race. The race doesn't really matter anymore at all, as the only racial difference is just the 4 racial abilities that are tied to all non-human races. But even that's not much of an advantage because of how little difference it gives you. Most races use up one of their character traits with dark vision. You can probably count the number of races without dark vision on one hand, which is fine, but it's boring. There's no variety. Just instead of thinking up something new, you add dark vision. Even in the build your own race rules, your options are dark vision or a free tool. And since you can earn tools through downtime for free, that's not much of an option either. A lot of races get weapon proficiencies as a racial ability, which is great unless they're playing one of the martial classes, which is great unless you're playing one of the martial classes, which gives you all the weapons anyways, in which case this ability is redundant and you don't get anything to compensate for that. At least if you start with a skill in canoodling because you're a gnome, then you get the canoodling skill again because you took the background canoodler, you get a replacement skill. There's no weapon replacement since fighters, barbarians, rangers, and paladins already know how to use every weapon ever made. Then you get to the problem with magic, and the fact that despite magic items being restricted, everybody gets magic anyways. There's only 3 of the 12 core classes that have the ability to be spell-free: fighter, barbarian, and rogue. If you want to be a battle master or a champion, great, you live and die by your martial prowess. But as the game has progressed, the subclasses are turning into just a martial type with magical abilities now welded on. Of the 6 subclasses in Tashas for the classes mentioned, all 6 of them use magic, if you count Psionics as another form of magic, which it might as well be. To add to this pattern, more of the races are gaining innate magical spells, causing them to look the same. Look at the sameness of the Genasi, for example. Again, giving everybody the same abilities reduces the uniqueness of the races and they just start blending together. The racial modifiers need to be a thing for story reasons. Humans are the baseline. Giving races modifiers based on that fact is commonplace in fiction. Time Lords process information at a ridiculous level, making them naturally more intelligent. Vulcans think in terms of probability, which increases their wisdom. Those hideous blue squid-headed chicks from Mass Effect use their psychic powers to convince everybody they're somehow more attractive so they can get close and steal their DNA. So they have a higher charisma. It's your game, it's your rules, but don't sell a possible story short because a player doesn't understand the merits of overcoming a drawback. For example, take everybody's favorite cannibalistic elf-ogre hybrids, the Injatwa. Imagine if you wanted to play a bard and you had to break it to your parents. Mumsies, dadsies, I've decided what I want to do in life. I want to be the basis for the new elves on the block. It's my life's goal to be the geezer butler of boy bands. First, your parents are going to want to make you piss in a cup. Then they're going to wonder where they went wrong. Then they're going to point out that as an Injatwa, you're going to be at a disadvantage at being a bard compared to other races that are far more charismatic. First off, you're a 7.5-foot tall half-ogre that scares children. And second, you view other sentient creatures as a food source, and you're perfectly okay with that. You might be the best Unjutwab boy band bassist in the world, but everyone else is going to judge you differently on stage compared to the nymph that can sing like a canary, carry a high C for several seconds, and spin the tassels on her pasties fast enough to get a B-24 Liberator aloft. But if you're playing the Unjutwab Bard, you will know the challenges of the character before going in. It's not a good fit, either mechanically or thematically. The player isn't doing it for the bonus, but for the story. If you go with the free-floating method, instead you just put your +2 in charisma instead of strength, grab the appropriate feat, and call it a day. Sure, you lose about 100 pounds of muscles, but you get your prime requisite filled. Instead of struggling with proving your talent to the doubting crowds who are skeptical of your musical ability, and more than a bit concerned about the toppings on your pizza, you're just a bard with a maxed out bonus in your charisma, just like everybody else. Avoid the cookie cutter at all cost. Some players love the point-buy system because they get all the points they want exactly where they want it. But if you do that, you might as well just play a game that's built around a point-buy system. Put everything on the table and let the players cherry pick what they want. If everybody's happy with that, more power to you. However, challenging players to embrace the storytelling aspects of a character that doesn't have every possible point put in the ability that gives them the maximum bonus to the primary attribute at level 1 can make for a fantastic game. Play the character, not the numbers. Sometimes getting handed a set of numbers and getting told to make a character out of them can be rewarding for a player. 3d6 straight down is anathema to a lot of players today, but it gives you the chance to let your imagination run wild. Maybe you roll badly and have to come up with a character that has to take up adventuring because their family didn't want them. If you want to play one class and the dice give you stats for another one, do you play the class you wanted to with reduced stats? Or do you follow the mandate of the dice gods and try a class you weren't expecting to play? Now this is just a suggestion, there is no wrong fun. Well, except the wrong fun with kids. The kind of wrong fun that ends up with the offender in a soundproof room with only a bucket of crushed glass, a collection of C-clamps, and an individual with an uncomfortably large knowledge of the location of nerve clusters on the human body, especially the extra sensitive ones located on the inside of the thigh. Not that I would know. On a completely unrelated note, gamers throw shade at each other all the time, especially over their favorite settings. I play in the setting that is known as Furry World by followers of Ravenloft and Darksun, or Super Depressing Emo World and Medieval Max as we know them. So, making fun of one world to set up your own setting isn't new. Realms players joke about us peasants and the 9 rings of meh, and we constantly kill Drizzt and Elminster as much as we can. So when people take a joke the wrong way and call the game designer a fascist, that is way too far. People use the word fascist so much it's losing all meaning. Might as well call him a jackanape or a roundhead. It has the same impact. The people that throw that word out so much are the same people that cock their head at you like a dog watching a magic trick when you ask them who Franco was. The Dragonlance guy wasn't attacking anybody with his meme, he was advertising his own setting. It was a joke, not a battering ram. Don't take it so hard.